This is the 5-minute sample for Secret Seth by Kai Brightly. This is my 25th audiobook, and it was released on June 16th, 2020. I think, out of all the romance novels I've read so far, the plot of this title read the most like a bad romantic comedy. I'm going to spoil the story a bit on this one, so feel free to skip ahead to the 5-minute sample by clicking the timestamp in the description below. All good? Okay, here we go. Tyler's decisions baffled me, and Seth just putting up with them and acting like a doormat was honestly irksome. For starters, Tyler lies to him about catching his flight during their vacation, and he plans to sit in his motel room for 2 weeks, which prompts Seth to drive all the way back to pick him up. And that doesn't sit right with me. I thought the action that prompted this was also funny. Tyler sends Seth's dad an email about how he could use any work Seth's dad has over the next 2 weeks, and how he's completely free during his vacation, and Seth and his dad just kind of scratch their heads and wonder, would Tyler really lie? Like they're a think tank of the world's greatest, most complex minds. Then, later on in the story, Tyler straight up leaves and flees to Hollywood after getting in a car crash with Seth's brother's pregnant wife, with no explanation to Seth. The car crash was also completely in the fault of the person who crashed into them, which everyone agrees upon and can easily be proven by simply looking at the impact of the car. So Tyler leaves, despite all this, because he is berated by Seth's brother, which made no sense because the pregnant wife herself and Seth are both defending Tyler. I think it'd be different if Seth showed a single instance of blame or disappointment in Tyler, but he doesn't. He's 100% on Tyler's side. Why does Tyler care about what Seth's stupid hothead brother, who's blatantly ignoring the facts of the crash and screaming at his pregnant wife, thinks? Why does Tyler place his status with the rest of Seth's family above how Seth feels about him? Why does Tyler take what the brother thinks and then think that's what the rest of the family thinks? And finally, why does the family, who was previously seen to be friendly to Tyler, completely ignore him as he leaves the hospital, and they all walk past him in a giant group and they validate his insecurities? Like, man, I hate when stories do that. It's like, oh, this character thinks a certain way, and then everything just sort of melds with that and affirms it for the way they think. It's so strange, and I don't like it. Anyways, Tyler leaves to Hollywood after all this, and this makes Seth have to go all the way over there and get Tyler again, just like the motel thing, and Tyler does not apologize for this, or even really acknowledge it, even after having made Seth do the same exact thing before, and only barely acknowledging that he was in the wrong that time, too. And it's like, what? What's going on here? We're supposed to like these people? So you might be thinking, especially if you don't know the full plot of this one, Tyler is perfectly within his rights to leave whenever he wants, which is absolutely true. But the book defies that. It shows the attraction between Tyler and Seth as being blatantly obvious. The two spend every waking minute of their free time together, and they're constantly alone and on each other's beds watching movies, and they kiss each other, and they kiss each other's cheeks, and the constant ditching that Tyler does is honestly insulting to Seth in light of these romantic interactions. And how does Seth react to Tyler leaving? He just goes and gets Tyler every time and reassures him, and it just utterly disregards his own feelings, which is sad. But does Seth even deserve this? I don't know. Seth is really possessive of Tyler, and he doesn't want Tyler to leave him to work with his dad, even though he at one point acknowledges that his own dad is getting old and could use the extra help. He acknowledges this. And I thought this realization would be a turning point for Seth, and he would stop pushing the dad to keep Tyler with him and not work with the dad, but he doesn't. He's just like, oh, maybe my dad is getting old and needs the extra help, and yeah, maybe Tyler should go. And then a couple chapters later, he's like, no, you don't get to take him from me. It's like, oh my god, it's crazy to me. His possessiveness, combined with him having to constantly go get Tyler, and Tyler just leaving unexpectedly, reeks of codependency. They're a hopeless combination. Like, and this is on the back of me reading King's Pawn, where Destiny and Bishop are just so romantic, and romancing the Omega and healing the Omega, where the couples are really heartfelt and you feel really good about them getting together. This is on the back of that. So it's especially like, what? I think a romance novel should give both leads depth. Not have them be flirty and obviously attracted to each other, and then just have them act out selfishly. Like, that does not make a good romance. And that's all I have to say about that. I hope you enjoy this 5-minute sample. Chapter 1. Seth Goodwin. My good shoes pinched my feet, making it impossible to get comfortable. Sitting would be nice, but all the chairs close to us were occupied. Dad, this is a bad idea. Choking back a sigh that would only get me elbowed, I snagged a piece of white cheese off the tray on the low table beside us. The candles stuck between the food burned low. Mom really went out of her way for this New Year's party, I mumbled around my tangy sharp mouthful. It was always a toss-up when Mom arranged these parties. Could be foot cheese from France, could be Vermont cheddar goodness. I went in for another piece of cheese, trying to be careful to get the same kind so I knew it was safe. My brother Eddie, a red-headed scarecrow in his suit, called to me from across the large room, but there were so many people talking and Christmas carols blaring way too loud for me to hear him. What could he want? I waved, and that seemed to be enough because he turned back to his wife. You know how she is. Dad straightened the sleeve of his suit jacket. He looked good tonight. Mom obviously dressed him, because the red shirt underneath wasn't his style. He had combed his brown and gray hair to the side, and his pleasantly tanned face was filled out with winter weight. The plate of cheese he had cradled close was a good indicator of why. I do. Dad smiled, resigned but happy, as he took in the chaos of the crowded room, stuffed with holiday decorations, family, and most of the neighbors in a 30-mile radius. Mom's touch was everywhere, from the rustic wreaths on the natural wood walls, to the cinnamon wafting over everything from something baking in the kitchen. My chest twisted up tight. This was what the holidays were about. An old lady dressed in a blue beaded gown hobbled past with her walker, shoulders sticking out of the low-cut back like sharp white wings. A peacock feather headband fluttered with her jerky movements, reminding me of old movies. "Hello, Simon," she warbled, neck jingling. I looked around, but she obviously had me confused with one of my brothers. I waved and smiled at her anyway. "Having a good time, Francine?" Dad asked loudly in her direction, leaning toward her. "Yes! Your wife's gingerbread is to die for!" Her smile shivered, as if she had a hard time pegging it into place. She scooted very determinedly toward an open spot on one of the leather couches near the fireplace, where a group of the neighbors had gathered. Dad scratched his chin and muttered, "As long as it isn't in the next 5 minutes." I held back a snort. "Don't let Mom catch you saying that. If she does drop dead tonight, she'll say you brought it on." Dad laughed, switching out his plate of cheese for a glittering glass from the nearby table. He knocked back a large draught of champagne, cheeks flushed. If I wanted to get any real work talk in, it was now or never. "I don't want to break up our work crews." I started in with my main complaint, picking at the tight collar of my shirt. "There's no way you can control 2 high-paced restoration and build teams at the same time. You can't be in 2 places. Work will get bungled." I warmed up to the protests I had itemized mentally all through dinner. "The safety of the workers will be put at risk. Customer satisfaction will drop." Dad snickered, his chin dipping toward his barrel chest, blue eyes glimmering with all of his holiday cheer. I eyed his empty glass. What number was that? "Seth, I fully agree." "Oh, well, good." All of the tension glomped out of me. That was anticlimactic. Construct a solid argument, get results. Go me. I smiled at him and straightened up to watch the party swinging. My youngest sister, Laurel, danced with a boy I didn't know. My brothers crowded around their well-dressed wives like something from the History Channel. Mating habits of the modern, 21st century man. Such prowess, such mystery, such idiots. The new crew. It's yours. You're El Capitan number 2. I tossed down the piece of cheese I was about to eat, and could already feel my left eye fidgeting a twitch. My heart bumped harder, and I had trouble wrangling all those wonderful arguments I had earlier. But Dylan and Lloyd are older. Dad shook his head, pointing to the clump of our family in the corner. 2 of the wives were pregnant, but Caroline, Dylan's wife, was really rounding out. Not that I was dumb enough to describe it that way to her face, but she could be smuggling a beach ball under her party dress, and I'd never know the difference. A link to purchase Secret Seth is in the description below. This title was a pay-for-hour production, so I do not make money from any purchases. Thanks for listening!